Welcome back, everybody, to That's DPI. I'm Zach, and that is Tyler over there, and we are back. The Super Bowl is next Sunday, or this coming Sunday, rather, and we've got a lot of fun things regarding that Super Bowl to discuss with you guys. But first, we're going to take it back in time to 2004, right?
2005.
2005, Super Bowl 40 between the Seattle Seahawks and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Yes, this is another Super Bowl featuring the Seattle Seahawks, and it was notorious for being one of the worst officiated Super Bowls in history. So we're going to do a little throwback ref call of the week, Super Bowl throwback ref call of the week. Then we're going to discuss the Pro Bowl, and then we're going to debate the Hall of Fame finalists for this year. Feels appropriate, right? Right before the Super Bowl. And then we're going to make our final predictions for the big game MVP, and maybe a little score projection. But without further ado, I will pass it to Tyler for the ref call throwback of the week. There are 3 of them, right?
There are 3. As this game is 20 years old, we're not going to spend as much time debating these. Pretty much what we want to show you is some of the more controversial calls from that game, and then a quick discussion of were the Seahawks screwed? Because the Seattle Seahawks themselves a few years ago even posted some of these clips claiming that they were screwed. So we're going to do an unbiased analysis and figure that out. This first one is from the first quarter. It's an offensive pass interference that took away a touchdown from Seattle. We see Matt Hasselbeck, a name of all names in Seattle, throwing to a touchdown and a late flag from a call that was right in front of the ref. That's kind of what makes this important, is that it's right in front of the ref. We see Hasselbeck immediately arguing, knowing what's to come. And here's just a little bit. We're going to show you kind of why it's called offensive pass interference against Seattle. So there's the call on the field. And again, you see a little bit of an argument there.
Mike Holmgren. Wow, what a throwback here for Seattle.
So here's what we're seeing. Okay, we're seeing Jackson. He comes up. He cuts right. He cuts left. And this is the key here. That arm extension right there.
Do they show another angle here? Or no, they do not.
I think that's about all we got. If you can go, right here, and just go and pause it there if you want to stay on it. We see them both look at the ball, and then we see an arm extension by Jackson right there. Man. And that's what they call offensive pass interference. Now, Zach, your face is what Seattle was making on this fateful 2005 night. Tell me your thoughts on this.
I think this is BS. This is so, by the letter of the rule book, I will admit, he did create separation with an arm extension. Yes. But this is so infrequently called. I mean, it reminds me of another call in a Super Bowl that I thought was questionable at the time as well. It was the George Kittle OPI right before halftime in Mahomes' first Super Bowl. I thought that one is very similar to this. Not a ton of extension. It's a one-arm extension, not a two-hand extension, like Amon-Ra St. Brown had versus Jalen Ramsey in the game-losing play against Seattle, which I also thought was soft but defensible. This is just a one-hand, and I don't even think he gets that much separation. So, man, I would not be happy with this call if I was a Seattle fan, coach, player. Oh, man, what do you think? I just don't like it.
You do see it live, and it's so quick that you do see it. You do see that arm separation and that extension. I get it, but I don't like it. I don't think that this is something that should be called because the arm extending is not the reason for the separation, and that's to me why I don't think it's called. I think it was only called because it happened quite literally 5 feet away from the official.
It's really hard.
It's a tough break from Seattle, but I don't agree with the call.
Yeah, and I think that this is interesting because throughout the playoffs, especially this year, I think I've noticed the refs letting the defenders play. It's been a lot more physical, and I don't know how far that goes back because this Super Bowl obviously happened when I was very young. I did not watch it live. You may have, but I did not. And
I did not. I was 4 years away from actually caring enough about the Super Bowl. Super Bowl 44 was my first Super Bowl that I watched live and cared about.
See, mine was Super Bowl 50. And that's because I was a late
Really?
bloomer. I was a late bloomer into football, if you can recall. But that's neither here nor
All right,
there.
well, we're gonna have some story time this offseason. I want to figure out how you got all the way to 2015 before watching the Super Bowl, but that's
I
gonna
was
be
a
some
Lions
offseason
fan.
content.
I was a Lions fan. We don't really.
That's
The
fair.
Super Bowl is not a word
That's
that you
fair.
utter in the same breath as Detroit. But anyway, except for
Unless
this year,
you're talking about this game, because this
unless
game was
you're talking
was in
about this
Detroit.
Super Bowl, which was hosted, if you can see the brick back here, at Ford Field. Welcome back. The only time the Super Bowl in Detroit will ever be mentioned in the same breath. But yeah.
All right. So before we go on to the next clip, though, obviously this was taken on. This is a touchdown taken away from Seattle. Seattle went on to kick a field goal this drive. So if you want to talk about points being cut, we can add 4 points to Seattle if you want to kind of keep score that way. We can add 4 points to Seattle, which would make it 21-14 Steelers at this point in time before we go to our next clip.
Yeah, but I think they got this one wrong ultimately.
I agree, and that's why I'm going to chalk 4 points up to Seattle for this one.
Gotcha.
But next up, we are going to stay in the first half. This is a third down play, which makes it significant, and it's originally spotted short, but then the second arm of the official goes up, and they rule this a touchdown by Ben Roethlisberger. And we're gonna see a sideline shot in just a moment, and I'll have you pause it right when he gets near the goal line. So he's running, he dives, and then he's still short. Bam.
Yeah, this is pretty good, huh?
To me, he breaks the play. This was called a touchdown. If it was called short, it would have been 4th and short. This is 2005, so there's a pretty good chance they kick a field goal and take the points.
Yeah, I mean, and this was pre Mike Tomlin or with Mike Tomlin? Do you remember?
This is pre Mike Tomlin. I believe Bill Cowher's the coach.
Gotcha. I think it's very possible they could go for it from the inch mark in the Super Bowl, but third downs were a lot bigger back then. You're right. There was a huge possibility they take their points and what ended up being a defensive battle anyway. But I do think that they actually get it right here. That Big Ben breaks the plane ever so slightly, and there isn't enough like high quality video evidence to overturn this in those early 2000s cameras. There just wasn't enough definition for me to understand if the ball crossed the plane. Maybe now we'd have a lot more information on this play, but it's just too blurry for me to understand whether to really decipher and concisely say that the ball didn't cross the plane, since this would have to be an overturn, right?
It would have to be an overturn. And this is actually before touchdowns and turnovers were automatically confirmed by the booth. So Seattle actually challenged this play.
That was actually refuted by Al Michaels on the call because this was inside 2 minutes. So it was automatically refuted.
Oh, you're correct. You are correct. You're right. Otherwise, so it did come from the booth then. I do apologize. I'm currently looking to see if I can find what the score was.
The score was 3-0. Seattle led. Here, it's at the beginning of the play.
Seattle. Okay, yeah. You're looking at more detail. Oh, okay. So if he's ruled down, then you can either take the points and tie the game in the second quarter. In what's currently looking to be already, I mean, this is 2 minutes before halftime, so points are rare in this game right now. So I do believe that they take a field goal. But I agree that this is an accurate call. I think he did get the touchdown. I think that ball barely breaks the plane, but nonetheless, it does break the plane. So I'm gonna keep my final score at 21-14 Pittsburgh so far.
Well, it would be 6. It would be 7-3 Pittsburgh. That was the first score of the game for Pittsburgh.
Yes. Yeah. So all right. So when I'm saying the final score, the final score of the game of this game, the final score of the game was 21-10 Pittsburgh.
Got it.
So I'm giving them the touchdown instead of the offensive pass interference. That gives them 4 points because they would have scored instead of kick a field goal. That's where my numbers are coming from.
Got it.
So
okay, that makes sense.
Based on that play, I'm not taking points away from Pittsburgh. I'm going to keep it at 21. 14 now instead of 10. But this is the big one too. This is now fourth quarter. We've got 1st and 10. And go ahead and play this clip. We've got 1st and 10. We've got a defender coming in from Hasselback's vision side. But we've got a catch. It's going to be 1st and goal at the 1-yard line now. But instead, there's a hold.
Late flag comes in.
A late flag. But this is kind of a two-part call because Seattle disagrees with the holding call, but they also claim that the Steelers were offsides. And you can't see it on that angle. They do maybe a hold, maybe not.
I think it's a soft hold.
I agree. So that's where Seattle comes from, is it's a soft hold. But they're also claiming that the guy who was being held was offsides, and so that the tackle has his only chance is to kind of hook him. And so I'm sorry, not the guy being held, but you're right there, the nose guard.
Right.
They're claiming the nose guard
and that's pretty clearly offsides. His hand is on the football. It's in the neutral zone.
I agree. So, yes.
This is a botched play. I don't know how you miss an offsides that's that blatant, quite honestly.
Mm-hmm.
And then we look at this hold. I just don't see it. He's got his hand in the chest. He does hook a little bit, but he lets go. He lets go very quickly, and the defender kind of loses his balance because his bend was so severe. I think this is not a hold we see called very often. That's all I'm going to say.
No, not at all. And this is where things get interesting now. What's the score that I currently have?
So if we were to count the Ben Roethlisberger touchdown and also count the Seattle touchdown, it would be 14-14 right now.
No, it would. Well, right then, yes.
At this moment.
But what would my final score be?
21-10.
And then if we give the OPI, it's 21-14.
Right.
Or if we take away the OPI, it's 21-14. Now here's where things get interesting. It would have been 1st and goal at the 1. Instead, it's 1st and goal at the 29. I'm sorry, it's 1st and 20 at the 29. The next play is a sack. The following 2nd down is a 7-yard run. 3rd down is an interception. So we're looking at an interception versus 1st and goal at the 1. I think Matt Hasselback can negotiate a touchdown with 1st and goal at the 1.
I think it's less about Hasselback in that situation and more about Sean Alexander. Fair. NFL MVP Sean Alexander.
Seahawks fans, cover your ears. We're talking about a run at the 1-yard line.
What do you think about a slant route right now for the 1-yard line?
Right.
But no.
But all of a sudden, though, if this place, if they don't call OPI and this play stands, we're looking at a possible 21-21 situation.
Yeah.
It's 14-14.
And that doesn't even factor in how different the game would be if Seattle took a 21-14 lead. The pressure would be on for Pittsburgh at this point, who didn't score their first points of the game until a 2-minute drill late in the second half. Clearly, Mike Holmgren's defense has been living up to expectations. And it's a lot different when you're down.
100%. And when I watched the videos about this game, and they had player interviews, NFL.com had a top 10 controversial games or something, and this was on there. A lot of the players talked about the offensive pass interference call being a momentum shift. Because now, all of a sudden, when Pittsburgh scores their touchdown, they're behind instead of tied, or behind instead of in the lead. And they kind of played from behind the rest of the game. As right now we see it's 14. They're down by 4 instead of tied. And they really kind of talked about that call, and then a couple other calls like these ones really just affecting the momentum of the game. And so I don't want to say, I never like saying that the refs cost the game, especially when Hasselback did throw at least one interception here. I think he threw a couple interceptions. But Seattle played their best game, and I think at least should have been able to tie the game.
Yeah, I think if I were to rank the calls by awfulness, I think Ben Roethlisberger is actually correct. So good on the refs there.
Mhm.
This holding call is second. Obviously I disagree with it, but I think it rests in the gray area. If you hook a guy and he goes to the ground, I think that it's about 60-40 the ref. 40% the ref throws the flag, 60 he lets it play, right? But that OPI, that's 95-5. 95% of the time it does not get called. I mean, we see players like Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase do that pretty much every time that there's a contested catch situation. And
I agree. And
yeah,
go ahead.
I think that it harkens back to exactly what you said. Wrong place, wrong time for that referee to be standing right in front of the infraction.
And even if everything else stands, okay, the Roethlisberger's touchdown stands, this holding call stands here, but we change the offensive pass interference. The score is 14-14. So then when Hasselbeck throws his interception 3 plays later from now, well, Pittsburgh's now having the ball with a tie. They got to go win it still instead of having the ball in the fourth quarter with a lead.
Right.
And the whole play calling changes, and it forces them to have to be aggressive again.
And that doesn't even change the fact that Hasselbeck may not have thrown a pick knowing that he has a field goal in his back pocket. He may have taken care of the ball and just went down, and the Seahawks lead. But obviously that now we're getting extra hypothetical. But, that's how much this call affected the game.
I feel for Seahawks fan. After going into this, I was like, all right, is it really I don't like debating holding calls in the second quarter, right? Kind of situation stuff. But after kind of watching all these plays, I really do feel for Seattle. I think Steelers still could have won, but I do feel for Seattle.
Right. I agree. And I do think that there was certainly some poor officiating in this game. Is it the worst Super Bowl officiating job ever? I think we would have to, continue to observe other Super Bowls, but it certainly is up there.
Sure. The last thing I'll say about this, and then we can get into 2025 instead of 2005, but this, to my knowledge, is the only Super Bowl where a ref apologized years later. The head ref did say years later in an interview that he's had many sleepless nights thinking about some of those calls, especially in the fourth quarter, and he might be referencing this exact call right here. So I do feel for Seattle. Fortunately, though, they did get their Lombardi in 2013, and if they win this weekend, then Pittsburgh and Seattle will both have had 2 Lombardis hoisted since the start of this game.
Yeah, that would be awesome if Seattle wins it, I think. They're the team I'm rooting for. I don't think anybody besides people in New England want another Patriots Super Bowl.
No, for sure.
But moving on, like you said, back to the current year, and we want to have a brief discussion about what's happening this week, which is the NFL Pro Bowl. Some of you may not even know that it's happening this week because it's been so diluted over the years. Used to be a game in Hawaii with pads and helmets. One of the biggest hits in NFL history came in a Pro Bowl when Sean Taylor leveled a punter on a fake punt.
R.I.P.
Rest in peace, Sean Taylor. But about 13, 15 years ago. And since then, the Pro Bowl has been on a steady decline in quality. And Ndamukong Suh, former Pro Bowler for Detroit, went on to Twitter to talk about the decline of the Pro Bowl. He said, making the Pro Bowl used to be way different. You really had to be elite. If you made it, it meant the guys lining up across from you knew you were a problem. These days, if I were playing, I'd honestly rather make a first or second team All-Pro. All-Star basketball went through the same kind of change. All-Star used to really tell you who's dominating the league. Now it feels way more tied to fan votes, markets, highlights, and popularity. The real merit-based honor is All-Pro. So I wanted to open up a little bit of discussion about this on maybe, is the problem as bad as Sue says it is? And what would we do to fix the Pro Bowl if it is? Tyler, go ahead. Do you agree with Sue?
I don't disagree with Sue. I do believe that the real award for a resume is All-Pro, okay? Because that's going to be players and coaches voting on that. I don't think the situation is as bad as he's claiming it to be, though. Because we do have All-Pro. we do have the ability to be like, I was first team All-Pro in 2025 and second team All-Pro 5 other times or whatever. But the Pro Bowl has changed since Ndamukong played. I do agree that it used to be that. It used to be whoever you're lining up against is the best of the best. But as we started seeing an era of players not caring while they're playing and opting out, the meaning and what the Pro Bowl is also different. As fan votes have started to become obviously more known, we've got Shedeur Sanders in the Pro Bowl and Travis Kelce, who is only in there because of the Swifties. I think that's okay, though. Because if you're going to have the All-Pro still, I'm okay with the Pro Bowl being about the fans. This is a showcase for the fans. It's a flag football game, so it doesn't mean anything. No linemen are facing off each other anymore in the Pro Bowl. It's flag football. So I'm okay with putting the popular people on there. Who do the fans want to see? Give a show for the fans, and then make All-Pro about the actual accolades. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying. But I think that the NFL has a serious problem with the Pro Bowl if guys like Shedeur Sanders are getting voted in, right? I think a simple thing to fix the Pro Bowl, since it's really difficult. The reason Shedeur Sanders is in the first place is because a lot of the quarterbacks on the side of the AFC are injured, i.e. Mahomes, Allen, Jackson, all declined due to injury. And they are legitimate injuries. Mahomes can't walk right now. And Allen was dealing with a serious lower body injury. And Lamar Jackson hasn't been the same since like week 5 of this year. So I think that this year is especially bad and especially exemplifies the problem. But I think that the NFL should seriously consider changing the Pro Bowl because contract incentives are based on Pro Bowls in some cases. And I think that really fair. Puts the onus on the NFL to make this as legitimate as they can. So while it is fun to enjoy the Pro Bowl and enjoy the Swifties voting in someone just because he's really popular among their fan base, I think that keeping at least a shred of legitimacy when there are contract incentives still out there based on Pro Bowls, I think we have to really, and like the 5th-year option dollars are based on Pro Bowls. On how many Pro Bowls you make is determining your 5th-year option money. So, you know, if Jahmyr Gibbs is really popular with all the fantasy owners that have him and he makes a Pro Bowl because of it, the Lions now have to pay him more. Whereas if a player is unpopular from a small market, they may not have to pay that guy all that much. So it's an interesting thing where we have to consider that Pro Bowls do mean something monetarily for the players. Now, an easy solution for that is to stop having contract dependencies on Pro Bowls and then just let it be its own thing. And I think that could be a decent way to fix that problem. I also think that if a guy like Sam Darnold is named to a Pro Bowl, obviously he can't participate because he's got a bigger game coming up. We don't replace him we obviously replace him with a guy like Jared Goff who got the invite in his place, but we keep Sam Darnold as the Pro Bowler. Because Sam Darnold won't get a...
And I think he would. If hypothetically Sam Darnold was named to the Pro Bowl this year, he would still go down as a 2025 Pro Bowler.
Right, but his replacement will also earn a Pro Bowl bid.
So you're saying take away the replacements being given that award.
Sam Darnold should certainly get the award. He deserves it. Well, yeah. over Jared Goff.
We can debate that.
Over Jared Goff, I don't think so. But Jared Goff ended up replacing him, and I think that's an example of it working really well because Jared Goff got snubbed. But Shedeur Sanders replacing Drake May, probably not, guys. Probably what we shouldn't be doing. So Shedeur Sanders will have a Pro Bowl on his resume because he got named to one. Kind of like Snoop Huntley got named to one a few years ago, and everyone laughs at it like, Snoop Huntley, the Pro Bowl or whatever. But that's the problem. The NFL should really address that and stop giving alternates the actual accolade that they didn't earn.
The other idea, and I want to get your take on this too, since we've already talked about stuff from 20 years ago. The Pro Bowl did not always exist, but for the Super Bowl. What are your thoughts on having the Super Bowl whenever, I guess, whether it be 1 week or 2 weeks after the NFC Championship, And then a week after the Super Bowl is the Pro Bowl. So that way guys like Sam Darnold, if he had made it, can be there.
I think that that's a great idea. I think that that further improves the Pro Bowl. They could even make it go even further out, put it in March to get the league together to maybe allow some mingling of executives to make pre-draft trades. You know, the Pro Bowl used to be that. It used to be executives and coaches discussing, you know, trade packages over Mai Tais in Hawaii while the players all enjoyed time together. I don't think that's really what it is anymore because a lot of the league doesn't even respect it, doesn't even go. And so making it a respected event happens after the Super Bowl where the Super Bowl teams and coaches could attend. I think that that would improve it even more than the changes we've already talked about, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I like that idea.
My other idea, and I don't like this next one quite as much, but I want to get your take on it, is taking away fan voting, or maybe make it such a small percentage, and you're all pro, your first and second and third team all pros, that's your Pro Bowl. Yeah. And if someone can't make it, then someone can't make it because it's not a serious thing anyway.
I could be on board with potentially lowering the weight of the fan vote in the Pro Bowl because it's not the final decider, right? You can lead the voting and I think you can still lead the voting in the Pro Bowl and not make it. We've seen it happen a handful of times. So the weighting is already kind of in a good spot, but I wouldn't be opposed to making the fan vote mean less. Still mean something, but mean less.
Okay.
But I don't know. I think taking fans out of the Pro Bowl is a mistake because fans enjoy being involved, and I think it's a really cool way for fans and teams to celebrate their players because you'll see teams post all the time, hey, retweet to vote in all of our guys. You know, I think that that's great. Like it gives teams an opportunity to interact with fans, get Pro Bowl giveaways, stuff like that. So I don't want to remove fan interaction for the Pro Bowl, but I do think that we should try to make it more legitimate.
Yeah, and I don't really want to do that either. Like I said, it's an idea that I didn't like as much as my maybe first idea, but I just want to, for discussion purposes, maybe bounce some ideas off that way. And speaking of voting, here on Saturday, the voters are going to reveal their Hall of Fame class of 2026 here at the NFL Honors. Like I said, this Saturday night, and we are going to debate this Hall of Fame class, or who we think should be in it. So, Zach, I believe you have a graphic for our class.
Yes, let me get that poll up here. Yeah, these are the finalists here. As you can see, we've got Drew Brees, Frank Gore, Luke Kuechly, Willie Anderson.
Mm-hmm.
You know, some other guys that have been here for a while, like Reggie Wayne, Ken Anderson, stuff like that. But
now, couple clarifications though as we debate this, just for our audience. Number one, Bill Belichick and I believe Robert Kraft has already been confirmed that they have not made it. They have not received the votes, so we can cross off both Belichick and Kraft here. I believe the NFL typical rule is 5 to 7 new era, and then 1 or 2 old era. But for this purpose, we're just going to come up with 5. I'm going to stick with new era, but we're just going to stick with 5 that we would vote in.
Oh, that's not what I meant to do. There we go.
There we go. Does that work, Zach? Just 5, new era?
I think 5 guys from the new era is what I was honestly going for already. So I'm glad that we're going to do that. But how do you want to do it? Perfect. Do you want to go ahead and go first, or do we want to go kind of piecewise?
I can go first. Let's just I'll give my 5 because maybe the second person I list is the third person you list, but so we can just kind of get our 5 out there and then we can debate what's going down. Gotcha. So my big rule is I like to have a lineman in each class. The NFL usually has a lineman or 2 somewhere. So my lineman is Terrell Suggs. So that's my number 1. is
Okay.
Terrell Suggs. He's going to be my honorary lineman. I can see Willie Anderson being in there. But I'm going to go with Suggs. I think he's going to be the lineman. Couple no doubts. I cannot exclude Drew Brees or Larry Fitzgerald. So far I've got Suggs, Brees, Fitzgerald. I'm also going to go Adam Vinatieri. Kind of surprised he didn't make it last year. So I am going to go Adam Vinatieri. And then my number 5, I'm going to go Reggie Wayne.
Okay, Reggie Wayne.
So my 5, I can see there being some disagreements here. This is we probably are going to be some disagreements, but officially my 5 that I'm choosing are Brees, Fitzgerald, Suggs, Vinatieri, and Wayne.
Okay, so I will actually agree with you maybe more than you thought. Your first 3,
Okay.
And you said in no particular order, but I think that these 3 are the most likely to get in. I have Brees. I have Fitz. And then I also have Suggs. So I have those 3 in. We agree on those 3. I think that Suggs had over 140 career sacks. He is the NFL leader all time in tackles for loss. To me, there's no debate for Terrell Suggs. Larry Legend, he's like second or third in every receiving category. I, for one, don't enjoy giving the counting stats like merchants a ton of love in the Hall of Fame, but I think that Larry Fitzgerald was so good for so many bad teams, and especially when the playoffs came around, there was nobody better than Larry Legend. So I think that he more than deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. And of course, Drew Brees, right? Super Bowl champ. Never got an MVP, but I think there were multiple years where he could have. And I think he's probably the most accurate quarterback the NFL's ever seen. So those 3 are fine. But my other 2 are Jason Witten and Luke Kuechly. I think that Luke Kuechly was snubbed last year for first ballot. I think he's better than everybody on this list except for the 3 guys we just talked about, and he might even be better than those 3. But I'm curious.
I don't have real strong opinions like against it. I'm not going to go out and be like, how can you have Kuechly in there? Like I get it. And I think if we were to go 7, I would for sure include Kuechly in there as well. But I also want to talk about someone that both of us snubbed for a second, and that's Frank Gore. Frank Gore was in the NFL for years, and Luke Kuechly retired young.
Yeah, so Frank Gore got the snub from me, and I'll ask you why you snubbed him, because he doesn't have a single first-team All-Pro selection. Not one. He has 1 second-team All-Pro selection in 2006. 1. That, to me, and that kind of goes back to what I was saying, is I'm not going to reward the counting stats merchants. Larry Fitzgerald also had accolades. No first-team All-Pros. Gore does have 5 Pro Bowls, and I'll give him that. But when we're talking about counting stats, guys, Larry Fitzgerald has 11 and 1 first-team All-Pro and 2 second-team. So 3 All-Pro teams he's made. So to me, Frank Gore is one of those guys that I'm going to kick the can down the road for him when there's guys that are more talented. But why did you snub him?
I snubbed him for a very similar reason that you did, but he probably would have been my 6th, just because of longevity. Frank Gore played for a long time, and I think it says something that even though maybe he didn't get an All-Pro, being a good NFL running back, because maybe it wasn't top 2 it's kind of like Drew Brees. Drew Brees never had an MVP. He was never the best quarterback in the NFL in a given year, but he was always top 3. To me, that's kind of how Gore was. Maybe he wasn't top 2 or 3 every year, but to me, he was always top 10, at least in his prime. So keeping his body healthy and keeping the train wheels on for so long, I think says something. Over Kuechly, I searched it up. Luke Kuechly was 28 when he retired. Now, I'm not going to hate on him for retiring early. A lot of players do that for different reasons, most notably Andrew Luck, because he was so hurt all of the time. But that being said, that's also why Luck's never going to get into the Hall of Fame. and I think Kuechly might be into that Andrew Luck of the defense type of era.
Okay, no, we've got to talk about Kuechly not in the same breath as Andrew Luck. Luke Kuechly.
Kuechly was better than Luck. Let me rephrase. Yes, Luke Kuechly was much better than Andrew Luck ever was. However, Andrew Luck will never even become a finalist or a semifinalist or anywhere close because he retired early.
Right.
Kuechly is going to always be a finalist because he is so much better, but I don't know if I would put him in because he retired early.
Can I tell you about a first
retiring
team?
early is what I wanted to point out more than actual playing comparisons.
Can I tell you about a modern era player that retired at the age of 30 who was a first ballot Hall of Famer? Can you guess who I'm going to say?
I know exactly what you're talking about. You're talking about Calvin.
Precisely. And do you know why I'm talking about Calvin? Because Calvin is less deserving of the Hall of Fame than Luke Kuechly is.
Oh, you think?
Let me break down Luke Kuechly's career for you, and we'll decide. Okay?
Okay.
Luke Kuechly in his rookie year wins Rookie of the Year, Defensive Rookie of the Year by a landslide. Then he never leaves the All-Pro team before he retires. He goes first team All-Pro, Defensive Player of the Year. Calvin Johnson never won an Offensive Player of the Year award. Then he goes first team All-Pro again. And then he goes first team All-Pro again, finishes third in Defensive Player of the Year. Then he has an unfortunate down year. He only gets second team All-Pro. Then he goes back-to-back first team All-Pro again. Then another down year, just second team. And then he retires. Unbelievable stretch. And I understand that he has 2 years less than Calvin Johnson when he retired, because Calvin retired at 30. But Luke Kuechly racked up more accolades than most linebackers will get in a career twice as long. Calvin Johnson only has 6 Pro Bowls and 3 first-team All-Pros. And then he finished third in Offensive Player of the Year voting. So take what Calvin did, add an Offensive Player of the Year, that's Luke Kuechly.
I hear your argument. I understand it. But I think Calvin having 3 extra years is important. But I think Calvin was always number one. And I'm not saying Luke Kuechly wasn't, because obviously the All-Pro show he was. But I think Luke Kuechly to other linebackers is closer to Calvin Johnson and other wide receivers.
So you're saying that Luke Kuechly didn't separate himself enough from other linebackers in the league?
I am stating that. Or at least other Hall of Fame linebackers from that time period. I think Luke Kuechly is closer to, say, Ray Lewis than Calvin Johnson is to, say, Reggie Wayne.
And I'm glad that you brought up Reggie Wayne, because if we're going to include a guy like Reggie Wayne and we're not going to include Luke Kuechly, this is where I have problems. Obviously, Reggie Wayne had some excellent counting stats, okay? Good job, Reggie Wayne. He has 1 first-team All-Pro. 1. That does not deserve the Hall of Fame over a guy like Kuechly, who had 5 and a Defensive Player of the Year. I understand that that Reggie Wayne has 14,000 receiving yards. I understand that. But we can kick the can down the road a little bit for guys like Wayne. For Kuechly, the Hall of Fame is worse every year that he's not in it.
And maybe what I'm noticing in both adding Reggie Wayne and putting Frank Gore at number 6 is I value longevity a lot. Maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't, but I am valuing longevity. When I think of a Hall of Famer, I'm also thinking about, can you tell the story of football without this person? I think in Reggie Wayne's case and Frank Gore's case, now mind you, Frank Gore was not part of my top 5. They played for so long that it's a lot harder to not be able to tell the story of football without those people. In guys like Luke Kuechly, I'm okay if he's making the Hall of Fame. He's probably my number 7 as well. If I were to include a full class, I would have Kuechly in there. But in my top 5, I am taking away a top 5 vote, at least in this case, due to that lack of longevity.
So here's my thing with longevity, and I think you do value it more than me. But if you have longevity, you have to do something with it, in my opinion. Reggie Wayne didn't do enough for me to get in. He had 6 Pro Bowls and 1 All-Pro in 14 seasons. So he was a Pro Bowler in less than half of his seasons. And that's playing with Peyton Manning, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like he's toiling away on a terrible team with a rotating carousel of quarterbacks. Like, I don't know, let's just throw a name out there. Like Larry Fitzgerald. Somebody like that who toiled away with awful quarterback play, 0 playoff success except for that 1 year. And he still doubled Reggie Wayne's Pro Bowl output. To me, that's a guy where longevity is, if you have longevity and no results, you don't get a Hall of Fame. It's got to be longevity plus results. And if you have no longevity, you have to have outstanding results to get in. And Luke Kuechly falls into that outstanding results. So does Calvin Johnson. But like guys that have played shorter than that, I won't give them the Hall of Fame. Like Andrew Luck, for example. Does he have results? Yes, but he doesn't have enough results to get in. You have to be truly, truly one of one. And making an All-Pro every single season besides your rookie year where you won Defensive Rookie of the Year, that's outstanding to me because it doesn't happen. Simply put, I've never seen it. But except for the all-time greats like Lawrence Taylor or somebody like that.
Mm-hmm. Tell me about Jason Witten, because he's the other guy that you had that I didn't.
Yeah, Jason Witten is one of those longevity plus results guys, okay? He's got the same amount of Pro Bowls as Larry Legend, 11. And he's a 2-time first-team All-Pro, 2-time second-team All-Pro. So 11 Pro Bowls, 4 All-Pro teams total. That's one of those guys where you can – and you can't tell the story of NFL without talking about Jason Witten, in my opinion. He played from 2003 to 2020 and made 11 Pro Bowls during that 17-year span. More than half of his seasons, he was a Pro Bowler, one of the best tight ends in the game during that time, 4,000-yard seasons. I think that Jason Witten deserves to be there more than Wayne or Gore. He did more in the same amount of time that Gore played at a position that had some really good talent like Gonzalez, Gronkowski, and Kelsey. He was still making All-Pro teams during that era of those guys. So I think that that's important to understand.
I will give you the credit that maybe I gave I gave Gore more credit than I probably should have. In which case that would by default put Kuechly at my number 6. And then you've convinced me with Jason Witten. I can put him at my number 7. But I do think that those stats are going to help Reggie Wayne a lot. Just that not just the longevity, but I mean, you kind of stat padding a little bit, but I do think that's going to help him a lot in this. Real quick, I do just want to ask you, who would you put at your previous era guy? I don't know if I said that right.
If I were to do a previous era guy
from this list, who would your vote be on this list?
I mean, probably LC Greenwood, 4-time Super Bowl champ, 6-time All-Pro, 2-time All-Pro for Pittsburgh. He also finished in the top 6 for Defensive Player of the Year 1 year. He was part of that Steel Curtain defense in the 70s. He's also a lineman, so I feel like he didn't get a lot of credit during that era. So I would give it to LC Greenwood. I don't know. I wouldn't give it to Roger Craig because he was a huge beneficiary of the West Coast offense and only has 4 Pro Bowls. So I don't know. Who would you give the old era one to?
I actually agree that my vote would go to the member of the Steel Curtain. I do, however, think that Ken Anderson is going to be the guy who gets it.
Really?
He's one of those older quarterbacks that I think was underrated. Like I said, I think I'm more playing the voters here. My vote would go to the Steel Curtain defender for sure. But I think people are starting to value those other quarterbacks that, I believe he won an AFC championship with the Bengals way back when.
Won an MVP that year too.
Did win the MVP, yes, and I think they're going to finally give him his flowers. It just kind of feels like one of those numbers. I disagree with it if that's where the Hall of Fame committee goes. I just think that's where it's got to go.
So who would you give it to if you were a Hall of Fame voter rather than choosing who's going to get in? Because that's kind of what I was doing.
Gotcha. Okay. If I was a Hall of Fame voter, I would also go to LC Greenwood.
Okay, cool.
We don't disagree on that one.
Okay, cool. And I guess I see the argument for the writers, an NFL MVP. But outside of that MVP season and that AFC championship that he led the Cincinnati Bengals to, he only has 4 Pro Bowls. And that was really his only season being named a first team All-Pro. So he really he kind of had a peak there. But Kane Anderson kind of reminds me of like a Matt Stafford type guy. Like he was always really consistent, always really putting up good stats for the Bengals, but he played for the Bengals. So like, what are you going to do? He played for the Bengals of this, who really had that one run where they got trounced by the Niners there at the end. And that was it for his career. And I think that a guy that played from 1971 to 1986 may, in fact, get his flowers, a 16-year career quarterback for an underappreciated team, career Bengal. I can see the argument, but I would go LC Greenwood, steel curtain defender, put him in. But maybe Torrey Holt. Does Torrey Holt count as a throwback guy?
I don't believe so, because Torrey Holt was part of that Greatest Show on Turf from the early 2000s, so he would still be a modern era guy.
Gotcha. Yeah, Torrey Holt over Reggie Wayne for me, quite honestly.
Interesting.
They have very similar statistics, and he has just more Pro Bowls. And he won they both won the same amount of Super Bowls, so they're super close. I value Torrey Holt over Reggie Wayne, who played with a Hall of Fame quarterback his entire career.
Interesting.
But
understandable, but interesting.
I think that's a good debate. It's about time we move on to our Super Bowl predictions. And we do have to talk about the big game. We've spent a lot of time talking about the Pro Bowl and the Hall of Fame, but there is the Super Bowl, right? And, I'm sure it's the least you've thought about the Super Bowl in quite some time, because it's the first time in a while that the Chiefs aren't playing in it, right?
Yeah, it is the first time. Well, it's the first time since 2021 that the Chiefs are not playing in the Super Bowl, and it is 2026.
Yeah, to put that in perspective, we became friends in 2022, right? This is the first February that we are friends that the Chiefs are not playing in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and another thing is I'm currently in my 3rd year teaching. We have been in the Super Bowl since before I started student teaching.
Yeah.
But first time since 2021 that we have not been in it. First time since 2017 that we were not playing in the AFC Championship game. First time since 2014 that we have not been in the playoffs. And the first time since 2012 that the Chiefs went into the final week of the regular season knowing they won't be in the playoffs.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty incredible. But we do have to talk about the teams that are playing. And that is the Seattle Seahawks, led by Sam Darnold, and the New England Patriots, led by second-year quarterback Drake May. So maybe we just go, general, who you think is going to win and why first. And then we can move on to Super Bowl MVP and maybe some score predictions at the end. So who do you think is going to win?
I'm picking Seattle. I think Seattle's got a very explosive offense. I think Sam Darnold is a good game manager, but I think he's going to manage the ball well, not turn the ball over, and most importantly, get the ball to his playmakers. And I think the defense is going to hold in the Patriots. I do like Drake May as a quarterback, and I love Mike Vrabel as a coach, but I think their offense is going to do enough to outscore, and their defense is going to do enough to prevent them from outscoring the Seahawks. And I'm giving Seattle their second Lombardi trophy.
Yeah, for me, I look no further than to last week's AFC Championship, which we did cover. some ref calls from that game that potentially turned the tide in what was a really close game against a backup quarterback playing in his third career game. And what we saw is Drake May struggled against the creative blitzing schemes by Denver, right? They only scored 10 points, barely beat a backup. So for me, you have to look at that and then immediately transition to Seattle. Do I think that Seattle's as talented as Denver? No, but I think that their blitzing schemes are more creative and can cause just as much disruption. So they're equal in my eyes. So I think they're going to give Drake May a lot of problems, and he's going to have a hard time adjusting to that. They've had the easiest schedule of the year. So I'm also going Seattle. I think that the defense will be too much, and the offense of Seattle will be better than New England.
I do like that you've mentioned the blitzing schemes, because that really is what makes Drake May fall under pressure. We did see that last week. I don't want to look too much at the AFC Championship game because the elements were absolutely atrocious, especially in the second half. But yeah, when Denver had their notorious blitzing schemes and had their receivers covered, Drake May had nowhere to go. He didn't even have the ability to throw to it, even if it was a clear day. And that's what Seattle really needs to capitalize. They need to cover well. They need to cover their receivers well, because Seattle does have a handful of good wide receivers that they can throw to. And on the offensive side, they need to get that ball to their playmakers.
Yeah,
Jackson Smith-Njigba being the number one playmaker, that is.
Yeah, the best receiver in football this year, and it honestly, for me, it wasn't even close. I know that Puka had a good season, but JSN is so good, and his chemistry with Sam Darnold has been really electric this year to watch. I also think that Seattle has a secret weapon. He's not necessarily a secret anymore, but rookie safety Nick Emanwari has been such a chess piece for them. You mentioned the Patriots not having a lot of places to go with the ball. I think Nick Emanwari is just going to take away so much of the field because of his speed and intelligence at safety. It's going to be really, really hard for the Patriots to move the ball unless they really lean into the run game and it works. But yeah, I like your take on JSN being a key player. That moves right along into who I think is going to win Super Bowl MVP. And if I'm picking Seattle, I think JSN is going to win the MVP. I think he'll have multiple touchdowns, over 100 yards, and he'll get the MVP award.
I agree. Multiple touchdowns, over 100 yards. To me, though, I gotta go Sam Darnold as the MVP. The wide receiver has to be absolutely electric and the only superstar on the field for the quarterback to not get the MVP. We did see that with Cooper Kupp, who I agree with, but because there really wasn't any other all-star on that team offensively besides Cooper Kupp. Here, while we do have JSN being the superstar, there is also Cooper Kupp. Or I'm sorry, there is also there's Cooper Kupp on that team. Am I tripping right now?
You are.
Yeah, I was like, wait
That's
a minute.
fine.
I went blank right for a second. But there's also Cooper Kupp, who is still an all-star. There's Walker, their running back, who is also doing very well. I think their run game is going to go well. So ultimately, I think when in doubt, go quarterback. And I do think it's going to be another year of the quarterback getting the MVP.
Tyler, don't forget about undrafted free agent Jake Bobo, who scored a touchdown last week. Do not forget. He's a huge Super Bowl MVP candidate. You are forgetting about a huge weapon in that offense. I'm obviously joking. But there was a screenshot from Seattle practice of Cooper Kupp throwing the ball in a play. So I think that one of JSN's receiving touchdowns could come from an unlikely source, taking away statistics from Sam Darnold, giving them to JSN. That's more of a bold prediction. Don't place your bets on it, but I do think that a non-quarterback will attempt a throw in this Super Bowl. So,
see, and it is interesting that you mentioned that, because that is something that you can bet on in DraftKings.
I might throw.
I don't bet because I'm not legally allowed to bet, but
I might throw.
I am aware that you can bet on that prop.
I'm legally allowed to bet. I probably shouldn't be legally allowed to bet because I'm so horrible at it. So, And I know that if I do throw a bet down on non-quarterback throw a pass, it won't happen. So for the good of you all as viewers, I probably am going to abstain from betting so the game remains interesting because I'm such a historic jinx that it would be terrible. But speaking of betting, if I were to bet on the score, I would say that this game is going to be 27-21 Seattle wins.
It's in 27-21.
That's right.
I want to pick. I'm more about the margins. I'm more about the spread. And then I'll use that to make my score prediction. I like Seattle by 10.
Is that the spread
I'm gonna
right now?
go 24-14.
Okay, so 24-14 is your score.
Seattle.
Is that the real spread right now? 10 points?
I don't think that's the actual spread, but I'm thinking by spread. I'm thinking Seattle by 10.
Gotcha. It is.
I'd be shocked if the spread is 10. There's no way the spread is 10.
It's 5. Seattle by 5.
Okay, that makes more sense.
And so I'm having Seattle win and win with the spread.
Okay. And I'm having Seattle also cover the spread.
Yeah, you're having them double cover the spread.
Yes. I'm going 24-14. Wouldn't be shocked if it was like 24-21 or 31-21. Wouldn't be shocked about that. I'm either going to go 31-21 or 24-14.
Gotcha. But I think those are good predictions. I just hope it's a good game. I honestly hope that your prediction doesn't come true because that means the Super Bowl does not come down to a final one possession because I really enjoy one possession Super Bowls. So, but all I'm hoping for is a good game. But that's all we have for you guys for this episode of That's DPI. Go watch the Super Bowl and come back for our favorite part of the year, which is our off-season coverage and season recap. So make sure you're subscribed. Don't want to miss that, but we will catch you guys next time.
Appreciate you guys.